artillery in the field. We haven't seen that a lot in recent memory.
Yeah, it works so well in the Gardevoir-based decks just because it allows you to continually refresh your hand so that you have the extra energy to attach with your ability as often as possible. I see so many different consistency cards that people run in these decks just because you have the room. Gardevoir is sort of an attacker to itself. You know, maybe you run the Gallade as well. That's enough of an offensive threat where you can sort of then splash in all these crazy techs. I see things like Alolan Vulpix, Diancie, just all different kinds of ways to either deal with threats or draw more cards or search for more stuff. And wow, that was a very fast turn for Israel.
And not a good one.
Basically a draw pass. That is pretty rough.
Yeah, now Ryan has a pretty good hand here. Look, it looks pretty bad when you Ultra Ball discard your whole hand, but it's getting Octillery, which will allow him to draw 5 cards off of Abyssal Hand. I always have this question when you have both Oranguru and Octillery out. What do you do first? And it looks like Ryan's going for the Instruct. That way you draw 3 cards for sure, and if you can play any, then you can draw 5 from the Auxiliary.
Well, Ultra Ball will play all 3 of them, and then your hand's empty and you can draw a new 5. Quite a bit of consistency. Yeah, I figured you go for the Kirlia here, and then you could maybe go for some crazy rare candy situation, but I guess if that's even the case, you just do that with the other one. Might as well make sure that one you've already attached to has evolved up. So here come 5 new cards, and you're maybe not even in that much of a rush if your opponent has that weak of an opening start.
Yeah, the only thing that's noteworthy here is Israel put down that Sudowoodo, and now Ryan is roadblocked. He can only put down 4 bench Pokemon, and Israel is going to go for the Ion Pool.
Wow.
Discarding the Fairy Guard. And that could potentially buy him a turn, but oh no. Looks like Oranguru might go on the offensive with Psychic.
Yes, here we go. Are we going to see an actual Oranguru attack? Why not? If it can actually grab the knockout.
Yeah, I've seen it before. I've done it. Looks like Ryan's going to go for Professor Sycamore, that alternate artwork that you could find in the Battle Arena decks. I do love the artwork on that card.
Yeah, it is great.
But we'll see if he can get a Gardevoir GX into play. He might not even need to.
No Gardevoir, but Oranguru attacks. What on earth is in Israel's hand? I mean, lots of energy, I guess.
Alolan Ninetales.
Aqua Patch. Wow, that is just unplayable.
Yeah.
Versus Seeker with no supporters ever played. We might see an Oranguru sweep. It would be pretty brutal, but
I think if a Gardevoir GX comes out here, or even Gallade.
Gallade does it too. I see Gallade in Ryan's hand.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to finish off the game pretty quickly. Now, Sensitive Blade will get a knockout on this poor Sudowoodo.
Might as well use the ability first, I guess. It's actually a very good ability in combination with some of these cards that allow you to draw more like the Octillery.
Yeah. I think this is already a tough match for Israel. His Pokemon just don't line up super well against the 230 HP of Gardevoir GX.
Oh my goodness, that's it.
Yeah,
it's
over.
And
just make matters worse, you draw dead your first game and can't do anything. But this is why we have best 2 out of 3, I suppose. We had 1 bad game, but we'll have plenty of time to play the other 2, I think. And this will give Israel a chance to perhaps, come back, win the next 2, and punch his ticket to day 2. If you guys are watching at home, get on social media, use the hashtag PlayPokemon. Tell us who you want to win. Do you think Ryan's going to close it out with his Gardevoir GX deck, even though that looked more like a Gallade deck right there?
Or Gallade and Oranguru.
Or will the 5-time regional champion Israel Sosa pull a comeback here and make his way into the second day of the World Championships? Finally getting a good finish here at the World Championships, perhaps.
Yeah, that was almost impressive how many straight turns Israel was able to draw cards and not get a single helpful one. That can happen sometimes with these kinds of decks, but it's not very common. You're running, huge counts of Ultra Ball, supporters.
I mean, the worst part is he plays 4 Alolan Vulpix. Like, if you even have one of those, you can beacon for more Pokemon. Yeah. It's very rare for his deck to draw an unplayable hand, but somehow he managed to do it.
It can happen in this game, sort of a game of chance. But here we go.
Oh, no,
same starters as last time. But we do see Bridget on Israel's side, so he will be able to get at least some more Pokemon that I'm sure he's looking for.
Yeah. Not very relevant prize cards for either player. Of course, they're always somewhat relevant, but nothing alarming. No multiples of important cards or anything like that. No crucial tech cards. and the prizes. So we should see a good, clean, fun game of Pokemon here. Starting off with the Bridget for 3 Pokemon on the bench, and Israel is going to be doing a lot more this game than he did last game.
Throwing up to a pass for now, but he has at least a Sycamore in hand to go for this next turn.
Ooh.
Speaking of Sycamore, oh man, all that candy straight to the discard pile.
So an ugly start for Ryan. He started off the last game with exactly what Israel did. Bridget get 3 Pokemon onto the bench. This game has to play Professor Sycamore, discarding 2 rare candy, looks like a Curlia and a Gardevoir GX. So a lot of resources down the drain right away. And now has to play an Ultra Ball just to get a Ralts into play. We'll see what he decides to go for. He might even take it a little slower, just grab Vulpix so he can grab 2 Ralts to put them down next turn. It's not a pretty situation to be in.
Just opting for the 1 Ralts. Did he have a way to move the Oranguru?
I think he has Fairy Garden, but he doesn't really want to retreat here, I guess.
Sure. And just a pass. So a little bit worse start for Ryan. That could definitely open things up for Israel, who already has Alolan Vulpix GX down. Sycamore drawing 7 more cards. A water in the discard pile, so it's ready to be patched back into play. Let's see what he can get. I see a patch.
Yeah, he could take a knockout here. I think it's a little awkward just taking a knockout on the active. You do take a prize, but then you don't soften up the Ralts on the bench at all. I think this puts on the most pressure on your opponent. You know, if they don't follow up with Rare Candy Gardevoir GX, you're going to be in great shape. But if Ryan were able to pull it off, I mean, he'd be in a pretty strong position.
Well, let's see. We see the Diancie drop down on the bench and a Wonder Tag coming from Tapu Lele. So I don't think Ryan's going to get benched out in this game.
Doesn't look like it, but he might not be able to evolve his Pokemon. If he can't ever evolve Ralts into anything bigger, and Israel continues to attack with Alolan Ninetales GX, it's going to be tough for Ryan to ever get any sort of setup, and then by that point, Israel might be too far ahead to come back.
So here we see the Fairy Garden come down and N as Ryan's supporter of choice. Yeah, like you said, not really anything to work with right now. Would love to get one of those miracle, rare candy Gardevoir hands, but when you dump a Gardevoir and 2 rare candy in your opening hand, that becomes a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I do want to talk about one of the new cards that has actually helped Alolan Ninetales a little bit is Guzma. When you use Blizzard Edge, you have to discard 2 energy, and it puts you in an awkward spot where you want to Aqua Patch to it, but you don't have it on the bench, right? With Guzma, you can Guzma out something, put Alolan Ninetales GX on the bench, Aqua Patch to it, and then power it up and attack again. And that's just a little thing that helps it quite a bit, I think.
Yeah, you don't have to do the awkward energy switch play as often now.
Yeah.
You just have the free switch built into a card that you were already running, which was Lysander. So here we see a brand new fresh hand of 7 coming off of another Sycamore for Israel. And here comes all kinds of stuff. The other Alolan Ninetales.
Yeah.
And Ultra Ball coming in for another Pokemon. He's got already 1 Octillery in hand. We're going to see a lot of cards drawn.
Yeah, this new Alolan Ninetales adds a little variety to this Alolan Ninetales GX deck. It gives you an ability similar to the Safeguard abilities of the past, where it cannot be affected by attacks from Pokemon GX or EX. So it gives you kind of a good option against, in this kind of a situation where Ryan only has 1 Ralts. If he evolves it into Gardevoir GX, then he kind of gets stonewalled by the regular Alolan Ninetales. There's just some decks that have a hard time responding to this Alolan Ninetales when all they have is Pokemon GX or EX. And it's a really low cost to play in your deck. You just play 1 card. It has a decent attack, hits for 80 damage. So I'll be interested to see if that's actually a relevant card in this matchup.
I've noticed Pokemon doing this more often where they print good cards, but they're connected to evolution lines that already had good cards. Like we have 2 great Garbodor that you can play, 2 great Alolan Ninetales that you can play. And it definitely has had a relevant effect on the format, making some old decks even better. Here we see just a Field Blower discarding both the Rough Seas and the tool on Israel's side. And looks like was that a Sycamore over on Ryan's side?
Yeah, he
Pitching
dumped
the
a
doubles.
lot of double colorless energy. But he did attach one, didn't want to burn all of them, but that'll mean he cannot attach to Diancie and use Sparkling Wish to evolve one of the Ralts on the bench. He can save one with Max Potion from an Ice Blade from Alola Ninetales GX. Can do 50 damage anywhere. That's what Israel did last turn, but very slow start from Ryan. That first Sycamore hurt him a lot. The second one hurt him again. And this might just be one of those games where, it's a stage 2 deck. Sometimes you don't find the rare candy when you need it, or the right, evolutions when you need them, and things go downhill very quickly.
This is almost polar opposite of the last game that we saw. Not going to go as quickly, but man, Ryan just has nothing to work with. Meanwhile, Israel has all this time, the Octillery to draw more cards, 2 Octilleries to draw more cards. Double Abyssal Hand is incredible, and he doesn't even really need to apply huge pressure. Just keep throwing those Ice Blades. If the Kirlia aren't evolving, no need to rush. I'm sure he saw those rare candies hit the discard pile early in. So we see Ultra Ball over on Ryan's side. Could maybe grab a Kirlia, could grab a new supporter off of a Tapu Lele. That's probably what he wants. He just has 2 energy and a Ralts in hand.
Yeah, it looks like that's what he's going for. He needs to get some kind of evolution going. Even at this point, if he just uses Sparkling Wish and evolves to Kirlia, it just gets knocked out by Ice Blade. It doesn't gain enough HP to avoid a knockout. So he needs to draw some combination of like a Kirlia and then Sparkling Wish, or Rare Candy Gardevoir.
Yeah.
And then evolve the other Ralts.
Here come the Gardevoir. They're in his hand. He's
Oh, and
discarded one Gardevoir
That's
already.
also terrible.
You can't Sparkling Wish anymore. Oh, wow. What an awful combination. Still no rare candy as well, which would, of course, help. Just just poker hands, but the bad kind.
Yeah. And he does have Max Potion in hand, so that could buy him another turn, but he's discarded so many resources with all those Professor Sycamore. Discarding energy, discarding rare candy, discarding evolutions, and really not playing many of his cards. So at this point, look at how few cards he has remaining in his deck and just unable to really do anything.
Yeah, there's the Kirlia down. He's going to do Sparkling Wish and get a second Kirlia down, sort of hedging his bets where even if one falls, one Gardevoir will come out. But it's definitely going to be a big hill to climb.
Yeah, Israel here certainly needs to find Guzma very quickly and pick off one of those Kirlia before it can evolve. Ryan hasn't been doing much, but Israel hasn't gained any ground. All of his attacks have been wiped out by Max Potion. He has kind of burned through those Max Potions, which is a big deal, but he hasn't taken any extra prizes. I mean, he's gotten a couple energy into play, but once Gardevoir GX gets up and running, it gets ugly fast.
Yes. Here we see a Versus Seeker. Perhaps he's discarded a Guzma. Looks like he has. So your boy's coming back into play. I assume we're going to see one Kirlia drop, which is a start, but it does leave a small window for Ryan to start getting the usual Gardevoir nonsense back in.
Yep, so there we do see Blizzard Edge for the knockout. Will Ryan be able to respond here? It would take quite a few energy to get the knockout. I don't think he can really get enough. You would need a total of 7 between the two Pokemon to hit for 210 with
Right.
Infinite Force.
But he already has 3 double colorless in the discard pile,
Yeah,
too.
and even with the Choice Band, it's 6 and a Choice Band. So there's no real way for Ryan to get a knockout here with only one Gardevoir GX. And hitting for 2-hit knockouts against Alola Ninetales is quite bad. You can simply use Ice Path GX and move the damage from Alola Ninetales GX to his opponent's Pokemon, and a kind of a Max Potion of its own. But it looks like Ryan going for that Twilight GX, that big GX attack where he can recover 10 cards from his discard pile and shuffle them back into his deck. So here comes those Max Potions.
Yeah, Max Potion coming back, the doubles that he's lost, maybe some of his evolution lines as well, maybe even Rare Candy. This deck really shines when you have 2 Gardevoir GX in play. Or more, so I'm sure he's just going to try and do everything he can to make that a reality. It's funny, this attack is usually only used against something like the Trashlanch decks where you can put your items back in. But I guess when you're in sort of this desperate of a spot and you've discarded so many good resources, might as well try it.
Yeah, and if you're Israel, you're probably looking at that saying, oh, geez, 2 more Max Potions I have to deal with. all those double colors coming back. And that essentially comprises Ryan's deck. There were like 5 cards in his deck, and now there are 15, and 10 of them are excellent cards. So if you're Israel, I wonder if that changes how you look at this game. Do you try to knock out Gardevoir GX, or do you try to take cheap knockouts with like Guzma targeting your opponent's Tapu Lele on the bench?
Yeah, it's interesting. You have a lot of energy in play. You need a few more to finally, like, oh, here comes another Alola Ninetales GX. You could try and go for like double Blizzard Edges, just taking the easy prizes. If you keep fighting against Max Potion and your opponent keeps hitting it, it can actually waste your time and your resources. He has to discard energy to do those big attacks. So we'll see.
Does find Guzma, but he only has 1 choice band, and that's on the active Alola Ninetales GX. But he is going to go for it.
Yeah, so here we go. Pulling up. So he's going to put up this fresh Alola Ninetales, retreat it, attach to the active, and Blizzard Edge the active. Another Abyssal Hand just to draw a few more cards. There's 2 prizes, and I guess if you're Israel, you're just hoping, well, I have double Octillery, so they can't really end me. I just need to find ways to get energy and another Guzma.
Yeah, and he discards energy when using Blizzard Edge, so there's no real way for Ryan to even get a knockout on this active, even with Secret Spring attaching an extra energy, double colorless. And yeah, Ryan just has to go for a beacon here. That's an ugly turn. And if Israel can get Guzma plus a way to power up that choice-banded Alola Ninetales GX, he'll take game number 2, and we'll move on to game 3.
So right off the bat, here we see an Ultra Ball. I imagine it's just going to be the kind of card that he's using to dump cards out of his hand.
Yeah.
Make it so that he can Abyssal Hand for more cards in his deck.
It's also a good resource check here. See what stuff he has left in his deck. There's 1 choice band. He has Versus Seeker in his hand already for the Guzma. But I have to imagine he doesn't want to play it unless he can get the knockout for the game.
Right. I don't know if he has Aqua Patch remaining. That's could be a big one if he just wants to play the Guzma right now and then draw more cards. He's in a great spot. Just wants to be very careful to not mess up the order of operations, which could kind of ruin the game.
Yeah, I think this turn I'm just attaching an energy to the active and using Ice Blade. I don't want to commit too much. You know, if you commit too much and then you miss, then it gets pretty ugly. You can Abyssal Hand for 1 card and see where it gets you, but
Float Stone. That could be
Abyssal Hand for
pretty
another
good.
one.
Yeah, and I think that's going to do it. But here we see Versus Seeker.
So he could, I think his Professor Kukui, he could play that and then just Ice Blade the active. That makes it so next turn he just needs Guzma and an energy to knock out that Diancie on the bench and take his last prize. And again, he's in no trouble of being end down to 1 card since he has 2 Octillery in play. He is very resilient against any hand disruption. So at this point, it seems like Israel has almost locked up the game. There's not many combinations of cards he could draw where he wouldn't be able to win next turn, but it could happen.
Yeah, it looks like there. Could have grabbed a knockout with the Gardevoir GX. Oh, he did. I thought he was scooping as well. So he does that. But Israel basically has the entire world in his hand right now. Aqua Patch onto the Ninetales. Let's see that Guzma.
Yep.
Versus Seeker for Guzma. Tapu Lele up. Knockout.
All right, so 2 quick games right off the bat.
2 games. It doesn't even really feel like it.
The first one, Israel kind of tumbled and didn't get anything. Second one, same for Ryan. He had supporters, he had stuff to do, but just came in the wrong order. He had to throw away so many of his resources and was unable to piece together anything. And by the time he finally got Gardevoir GX into play, it was just too late. It only got to attack like once. Well, we saw 1 GX attack to recover everything he had discarded, and then 1 final attack, and that was it. It was already over.
Yeah, it took him something like 5-6 turns to see his first Gardevoir, which is just not acceptable. You can't really compete in this format when your deck engine runs that slowly. He had some, like you said, incredibly unfortunate Sycamores, and sometimes that's the downside to Sycamore. It's one of the most explosive supporters. We've seen it coming in many different ways. You could say all the way back to Professor Oak, but also like the Professor Sycamore. But it's always sort of been that way, where it has by far the greatest reach that you can dig into your deck. But discarding your entire hand first can sometimes be really deadly.
Yeah, I mean, nothing really compares to drawing 7 new cards. and you don't even have to shuffle cards back in, so you are drawing through your deck much faster than usual. We've had other things like Colress, which can let you draw 10, even 16 cards when Skyfield is in play, but nothing does it as consistently as that Professor Sycamore or Professor Juniper if you're playing in the expanded format.
So here we see a mulligan over on Israel's side. Looking at the prizes, Gardevoir, a Ralts. Oh, the Bridget is a pretty big deal. Most people only run one because you figure, I don't need this beyond turn one. 2 mulligans over on Israel's side, though.
Yeah, that's going to be annoying for him. You never like to have your opponent have extra cards at the beginning of the game, especially when your opponent is going first. Then you don't get an opportunity to disrupt them with an N or something like that.
Yeah, and Israel does run a pretty high amount of basic Pokemon, but sometimes this can happen.
Alrighty, game number 2 underway. Oh, Bridget prized for both players. That's potentially ugly for both sides.
Yeah.
Ryan's going to learn the news right now as he plays Tapu Lele GX, probably searching for that Bridget. That is the first supporter card you want to play every game. Get 3 more basic Pokemon onto your bench. And there's the classic look through my
The
deck.
sinking feeling.
I don't see it. Look through again. Maybe I missed it. Oh, it's not there.
Okay, let me do 1/3 pass just in case. I probably saw it wrong.
And then it's time to recalibrate. Say, what do I do if it's not there?
I guess I'm inning, says Ryan.
And that's not pretty. I mean,
No, not after all those mulligan cards.
Yeah.
You like to get to a big head start, you know. He's got like an Ultra Ball to play with it. But once again, going to have to pitch resources like Rare Candy.
it's not a card I want to get rid of early on in the game.
I don't know if we've seen a single Rare Candy played by Ryan in either of the 2 games.
Yeah, I'm not sure. He does play 3 Curlia in his deck, so he can evolve either way, quickly with the Rare Candy or slowly
Yancy.
the old-fashioned way. Oh,
Israel saying, thank you so much for the end. My hand was garbage. It's a pretty cruel move, but then it just makes you think, man, wow, what if I decided to not do that? The thing is, Israel hasn't even played a turn, so you can't even really speculate.
Yeah.
You can't know. That is pretty crazy that Israel had 2 just awful hands out of these 3 games.
yeah, at least this time he had a Vulpix to Beacon, but
Yeah, even that changes quite a bit.
Yeah, and you can see perhaps the Bridget and the prize cards kind of compounding for Ryan. If it were in his deck, he wouldn't have probably played the N and wouldn't have had to give Israel a new hand. But the fact that it's prized, hurting him pretty much twice as much.
No real supporters on Israel's side, having to grab a Tapu Lele from this Beacon. But it's like you said, that's sort of the beauty of Beacon is that it can help you set up. But overall, I would say a pretty slow start for him, even after that fresh new hand. And there it all goes off of another end.
Yeah, so it looks like in the 3rd game we're going to have at least both sides setting up somewhat. Ryan, this will be a big 6 cards for him off of this N if he can find a Rare Candy, Gardevoir GX, and another Fairy Energy to attack for a knockout here. That'll be huge.
Did I see the candy? I see the Ultra Ball. Yeah, he's got it if he wants to throw some resources. It's pretty hard to say no to this. Getting that Gardevoir right away is a really big deal.
And this is the kind of start that kind of feels unbeatable sometimes. But actually, Ryan going for the Alolan Vulpix. He could have had the Gardevoir GX up and running right here. And he actually opts to go for the Vulpix instead, taking a slower route. You have to wonder if it would have been better to just, Rare Candy, Gardevoir, Player Energy. His last card in hand would have been an Ultra Ball, which he could have played next turn after taking a prize, but taking a much more conservative route.
Huh, interesting. We'll have to see if this Ralts can survive on the bench. I think it probably will, but it does give Israel, I guess, one more turn to sort of set up. He could even evolve this active Alolan Vulpix, which would have been knocked out.
Yep, looks like he's going to grab an N off of that, and he's going to shuffle those Pokemon back into Ryan's deck, which is going to be pretty big. Perhaps it'll stop a Gardevoir from coming out next turn. And he also has Float Stone to be able to retreat and soften up the Ralts on the bench with the Ice Blade. So Israel is going to be kind of sweating next turn, I think. If Ryan is able to draw like the perfect Rare Candy, Gardevoir, Fairy Energy, Double Colorless, he can get a knockout with Infinite Force. But that's a lot of stuff to ask for.
Well, here comes, like you said, just softening up the Ralts on the bench. Ice Blade,
Oh,
but
boy.
there's Rare Candy Gardevoir. That's not what you want to see.
No, it is not. And even if Ryan gets, let's see, so if he gets 4 energy onto it with the Choice Band, that is enough for a knockout. If he can get 2 energy, a Float Stone, and retreat, he can get the knockout that way. Although I don't actually think Ryan plays Float Stone in his deck.
Wow.
He only plays the Fairy Guard, so he might not even be able to pull it off.
Here we see a Field Blower just getting rid of the Float Stone on the Alolan Vulpix, drawing some more with an Instruct. By evolving to the Curly, I think that removes his option for a 1-hit knockout.
It does.
But it will. He'll be able to work on a 2-hit knockout, maybe. I don't know. You don't really want to walk into that GX attack on Alolan Ninetales. It puts you in a really weird spot. You just kind of have to sit and wait while
It's
your
actually
opponent soften you.
a terrible spot. If he were to attack right here, it would do exactly 180 damage. And that means an Ice Path would exactly knock out Gardevoir GX and fully heal Alolan Ninetales GX. So Ryan has put himself in a spot where he can't even attack with Gardevoir GX here. And that might open the door for Israel to do some crazy Guzma, Choice Band, Blizzard Edge, knock out the Gardevoir GX. But the Field Blower on the Float Stone that Ryan did will make this more difficult.
It definitely is. I'm trying to see how many copies of Float Stone he runs.
2.
Yeah, so definitely makes that play a little bit tougher. That said, you could always do things like attach the active Aqua Patch to the bench Pokemon, move and retreat that way. Either way, this Gardevoir not being able to attack just really shows the power of Ice Path. If you can't one-shot Alolan Ninetales, a lot of the time it's maybe not even worth attacking.
You need to respect that Ice Path GX. That is one attack that can completely swing a game if you are not prepared for it. But this will be another big opportunity for Israel. Can he possibly knock out his opponent's Gardevoir GX on the bench? I don't think he has the cards to do it. And all he has is Professor Kukui. That is really bad.
That is pretty tough. Still has not even been able to bench a Remoraid, so that double Octillery Dream that we saw in the last game is nowhere near completing this one.
And this is where things can snowball out of control. Ryan attaching that double colorless to his Gardevoir GX, and now he will certainly get the knockout on Alolan Ninetales. And if Israel can't respond, this is where Gardevoir GX takes over. It can be a little slow to set up sometimes, but once it gets going and gets a bunch of energy on it, if you don't knock it out, you're just getting destroyed every turn by Infinite Force.
Yeah, and here we come. Look at all that energy and the Choice Band. This is the Gardevoir GX the format has come to know and fear. It has sort of dominated this Day 1 tournament. We've seen it bring so many players into Day 2. Could it be one more with Ryan Grant?
Sure looks like it right now. The game is far from over. Israel has put himself in a spot where, he's at least softened up those Gardevoir GX. But, I mean, he's going to get knocked out here. If he doesn't respond with a knockout on this Gardevoir GX, I got to think Ryan's going to take 2 more prizes, and then it's just downhill.
Yeah, this is a very crucial turn. I think if he does get the knockout, he can stabilize the match a little bit. But it's like you said, this is sort of like an end game, like right now, or already, even though players haven't taken a prize yet. This thing will just steamroll your entire deck if you don't deal with it.
Ooh,
Max Potion on the bench, too.
Gets to use that Secret Spring ability to attach an additional Fairy Energy, perhaps setting up for even a future knockout. Even if his active goes down, he could have enough energy to respond with another knockout on the following turn. I think it might be a little short, but I always want to get that extra energy in play when possible. But this is the big turn for Israel. He needs, double Aqua Patch, Choice Band, attached from the hand or something like that.
Or Float Stone. That sort of looks like what he's going for. There's an Aqua Patch at step 1, but I don't know if we have all the other pieces. It's going to rely on some pretty crazy stuff. A Sycamore can definitely make that possible. He has Versus Seeker in hand.
Yeah, I was thinking he could maybe double colorless on the Tapu Lele GX and Choice Band, but that's actually 10 short of a knockout.
Double colorless Choice Band Kukui?
Oh, that'll do it.
Yeah, that looks like where we're going.
All right, Professor Kukui coming in handy, getting the extra 20 damage. Now, the bad part about this is it does make a much easier knockout for Gardevoir GX. Tapu Lele only has 170 HP. That means only 5 total energy between the two needed for the knockout with Infinite Force. And there's already 3. So if Ryan can find a double Colossus energy or 2 Fairy energy, he can knock out Tapu Lele GX and have an undamaged Gardevoir GX with a bunch of energy. And I'm not sure if Israel can really deal with that.
Yeah, I think he made the best play possible. He had the knockout in hand, and you have to get rid of the one Gardevoir. But that's the problem, is already the second one's here. Didn't it feel like Ryan attached so many energy, and then also was like, oh, you know what, I'm going to also attach one to my bench Gardevoir. Those Secret Springs, they stack. They allow you to get so many energy in play. And I think, wow.
Ryan actually missed, so he plays 1 Wonder Energy in his deck. It can be very good against specific matchups to prevent effects of attacks. He didn't play it because he wanted to draw double Colossus energy. In doing so, he missed. He was trying to get the double Colossus, but if he would have just played the Wonder Energy, he could have used Secret Spring to attach the 3rd energy and get a knockout here. Instead, he's going to have to use Twilight GX, and that is a huge swing in this game.
I can't believe he missed it. I feel like, personally, I would have attached the Wonder, but you never know. You know, sometimes you want your deck to work out in certain ways. If you attach the Wonder and then later you draw double colorless, you can't play that. You can't spring that. But man, what an interesting twist.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's down at least 2 double colorless energy so far. May have just played the odds and said he was more likely to draw a double colorless than a Fairy energy. But no matter what the case is, that was a big miss. He will recover 10 cards from the discard pile, shuffle them back into his deck. But this is opening the door for Israel to come back.
Yeah, he needed this turn pretty desperately. If Ryan's able to take the quick 2-prize knockout on the Tapu Lele, it puts Israel in a really tough spot. He can't really one-shot the Gardevoir. Now he can sort of work on some kind of 2-shot and make the game somewhat competitive if Ryan is not able to get an additional Gardevoir out from this Ralts on the bench.
Yeah, this could be a similar game state to what we saw in Game 2. This has opened up the opportunity for Israel to get those Choice Band Guzma knockouts on Tapu Lele GX and just avoid Gardevoir GX altogether.
Oh boy, and here we see Water Energy being slammed down, Choice Band being slammed down versus Seeker.
Here comes your boy.
And all of a sudden, Israel looking like he could steal this game.
He certainly could. He's going to discard 2 of those energy, kind of put him out of range for Gardevoir GX. He's down to 2 prize cards. The big thing is he doesn't have that Octillery down quite yet. If his opponent plays N, he could get disrupted quite a bit. He's only got 2 prize cards left. This is going to be a photo finish here, and this is just the way we want to end our final Swiss round here at the World Championships. It's win or go home. One of these players will win a nail biter. The other will have a depressing end to their day.
This is all you can really hope for here for the final round. Assuredly, with 16 minutes left, someone is going to finish this one way or another.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It looked like Ryan was in the driver's seat for a while. He had so many energy, but then he whiffed a really crucial turn. You'd think, drawing all those cards, oh, of course I can attach 2 energy. The second you miss that, you open up sort of cheap knockouts for Israel. By playing the Tapu Lele, it's not as cheap as like the Shaman used to be with such low hit points, but still, this is sort of what Israel's deck does, is it knocks out 180 or less hit point Pokemon.
Yeah, so now Ryan, Ultra Ball didn't grab anything.
Just looking to instruct out of this?
I think so. There was a Gallade in his deck. He didn't take that. He has a rare candy in hand. He could have done that. But that makes me think a Gardevoir GX is prized. Something he could have tried to do this turn was, play a Guzma of his own or Lysander and go for the Tapu Lele GX and knock it out. Try to even up the prize cards here. I think at the very least he's got to try to do something. And this is going to be just an Infinite Force for 90, but okay, going to go for the Lysander and make it 60.
Yeah, it's almost a scary play. If your opponent has another Guzma, you sort of gave them the opportunity to Aqua Patch on the bench.
Yeah.
Here we go, Stadium Swap. A very quick heal there with Rough Seas. Now let's see what is in Israel's hand. Sycamore, so I don't think we're going to see the end of game on this turn.
Does not look like it. So Ryan can breathe knowing he has at least one more turn to play here. And Israel is going to be looking for those aqua patches, his signature card, or at least some energy to play this turn.
And Octillery too, which we still have yet to see. Just an attach and a pass over on Israel's side.
And this is Ryan's big opportunity. He drew Professor Sycamore. He can draw 7 cards here, but is that really going to be enough? I don't think he can get a knockout here. He would need 5 energy on the active. That Rough Seas potentially changing this game completely. But if he were able to get double colorless, a second Gardevoir GX, and 2 fairy energy, he could get the knockout here and put Israel under the ultimate amount of pressure. But I don't think he got it.
I think he's 1 Gardevoir and 1 fairy energy short.
And then it's just the question of what do you do? Looks like he's just going to hit for another 60. You don't want to walk into that Ice Path GX, and this might be
double
it.
colorless energy. Guzma immediately. That's the switch. That's the knockout. You can hear the crowd cheering. Israel by the skin of his teeth, escaping and grabbing himself a trip to Pat City on day 2.
That's right. Israel sticking to his guns, and you can see a big sigh of relief